Hello and welcome to the After Sermon Podcast, where we pick up all the bits from the cutting room floor that didn't make it into our sermons and break them down. And today we're looking at the sermon, My Journey. Hi, my name is Christopher, and ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat. We have two special guests with us this morning. First of all, we have returning co-host, Mr. Jai Watson.
Afternoon.
We also have with us, my dad, Mr. Jonathan Peterson.
How's it going?
And we also have our special guest preacher of the day, Mr. Peter Watts.
Hi there.
Awesome. So today we're a little bit under time, so it might just be a special sort of podcast, maybe the first of the ASP shorts, perhaps. We'll figure out as we go along, but we're really glad to be able to have the bunch that we do have here today. Now, normally we get into the recap, but I think we'll forego it today. If you do want to go and watch the sermon, My Journey, it should be in the link below. Make sure to come back here after you've watched it, because this podcast is going to be full of spoilers. We're going to be discussing everything, so in order to get a better context, you may want to watch the sermon first. So make sure you go and do that. With that out of the way, we can get into our impressions.
Right, so let us get into our impressions. What did you guys think of the sermon?
Well, actually, it reminded me of my journey into the Seventh-day Adventist Church. A lot of the things that you experienced, I experienced as well, particularly the revelation of new teachings. All those things that stood out to you. I was a Christian before, so I came from a different background in that I was already attending church, but then when it was shown to me, for example, about the Sabbath truth in the Bible, I thought I knew the Bible, and then someone shows me the Sabbath truth, I was shocked. Same with State of the Dead, great controversy, and I think there were four that you mentioned.
Yeah, for sure.
And all of those really stuck out to me as well. Yeah. So I was actually really moved by it, and really sent me back 20 odd years to when I came into the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
That's great.
Yeah, Jai.
I was really impressed by it. I always like people's testimonies that are come from a non-believing background or non-practicing background. I think that their changes are usually more dramatic or than people in the church sometimes. And just some of the gems along the way that you really, talking about your folder, your friend Steve's folder that kept on popping up in your life. That was really exciting, the way that God has these little gems for us throughout our experience. Yeah. So
what also stood out to me was how God does things individually for us. Yeah. Like I remember the rainbow. That's something that He did for you. It meant nothing to anyone else that day, probably. And it makes me remember things that God has done in my life, which only meant something to me, and God knew it would mean something to me. And on any other day, it wouldn't mean anything, but God knows at that particular time in your life, it means exactly what you need it to mean to step in close connection to Him. And as Jai said, that pictorial aid, and then getting to work at the company that produces that's incredible.
That was like freaky. And I think when you were talking about, and when I mentioned the rainbow, for instance, it's those times for me, and this is why I think prayer is so important too, is because when we pray, and we see that God has answered a prayer, we know that He's in communication with us. We are actually moving the hand of God, the God of the universe. We're actually able to speak to Him, and He's able to answer us in tangible ways. And so those providential things that happen, like the rainbow, or even with answered prayer, and we know God exists at that point. In other words, there's an interaction that takes place between us and God.
Yeah.
And it's a real wow moment. It's like the supernatural entering the natural. And to me, it makes all the difference. And this is why I think, prayer is obviously mentioned many, many times in the Bible, and Jesus taught His disciples how to pray. But prayer is so important, I think, because it actually allows God to engage with us on that one-on-one basis, and you know God is working in your life, in the lives of the people you're praying for or whatever, whereas God is still working whether we pray to him or not, but we don't know that because there's no personal connection. We haven't spoken to him and asked him specifically for that thing, and then when he does that thing we think, well, that just happened, whereas when we pray for it, there's an interaction that takes place, and I think it's so wonderful. I was talking in the sermon about the fact that I grew up as someone believing in evolution and didn't believe that there was a creator God, or didn't even know really that was an option. And I suppose one of the things that I wanted to share that wasn't in the sermon was that when I came to understand that God was real, and that God was not only real but he was willing to interact with somebody like me, it was like the world changed from being black and white to being colour. Right? It's difficult to describe in a way the amazing difference on an experiential level from being somebody who didn't believe to somebody who did believe. On the one hand, there was an acknowledgement that everything in the universe looked different because there's something behind it, there's a purpose behind it, there is a maker behind it, and it's not just some random being who's producing things on a factory and just sending them out there. He's making things for a purpose. And as far as Earth is concerned, it's for us. Yeah. He made it for us, so the beautiful things that we see in the world actually are made by someone to impress me, to be appreciated by me. Yeah. So that was fascinating. There's an ad on I've seen an ad on the television where it says, to a child, there are not 7 wonders of the world, there are 7 billion. And that was really explains, it's a good explanation of what I felt when I came to know that there was a God in the universe, that suddenly the world is full of 7 billion wonders.
Yeah, it's a whole new perspective that sort of opened up to you. It's awesome. Yeah.
On a second level, I suppose, when God called me into ministry, and I mentioned in the message this morning that I was actually praying to God for him to lead me into some kind of work for him, and I ended up working as a volunteer initially. Yeah. Much later, I decided to follow God's call into paid ministry. That was really never on my mind. I just followed this sort of route of making a decision for Christ, getting baptised, and then working as a volunteer. But what I've discovered is the best part about ministry, and when I say ministry, I'm not talking about paid pastoral ministry, I'm talking about being involved with God in trying to make a difference, a positive difference in the world and in the people's lives. So one of the great things about ministry, I think, is it's as though God gives you a front row seat where you can see what he does. So you don't actually do the supernatural stuff. He does the supernatural stuff through you and through other people. But because you're involved in a ministry of some kind, you get a front row seat to see what that looks like. Yep. And that's really that's the biggest blessing, I think, of being involved in any kind of ministry, is seeing God at work.
Yeah. Peter, you were saying about you just took little steps, like you just volunteered for this to be a helper or whatever.
Yeah.
Had you saw the possibility of being a preacher, would that have scared you? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, it was kind of weird, really. I mean, looking back on it now, first of all, I thought it was a bizarre idea for me to be actually working for the church. I'd never in a billion years would I have conceived of ever working for a church. And then here was this pastor who was leading me through a series of studies. I was going to get baptised. I'd made my decision. I wanted to be where God wanted me to be. And then he was leading me into this role. And I suppose in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to be in Australia for another 6 months. I might as well volunteer for the church, and then I'm going back to England. So at this point in time, I was thinking, I'm going back to England, and that's my little Australian escapade all over.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a nice holiday, and that's it. I mean, coming to Australia for a year as a backpacker was just an adventure. It was a 26-year-old's adventure.
That changed your life.
That changed my life. I'm now many years down the track, but I'm still on the adventure. Don't tell anybody. But I'm actually just on, that's all I'm doing. I'm still on the adventure, and being involved in ministry is a part of that. It's a part of an enfolding of that adventure. So to me, when I get up and wake up in the morning, I'm still on the backpacker journey, and I'm moving around Australia more slowly now, and I'm getting to see all the things that I thought I'd miss out on by committing my life to God, which is amazing. I mean, like just within the last 12 months, I went to India and we ran a mission in India. It was the second time I've been there, not the one that Abel went to, a different one, but that's something now we also have in common. But the opportunities that God affords you when you'll throw yourself into His arms are just amazing. It's so funny because the impression we have of the religious life is that it's a pretty boring life, right? I mean, religious people, when you're on the other side of that fence, as a secular person, you think, religion, like, who needs it? And it's so boring, and it's all the rules and regulations.
Let them drink, let them party.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, although, it's funny if somebody has said to you, hey, I've got a rule that you won't have to throw up in the toilet anymore. Okay, fair enough. I can embrace that, So it's kind of like the view of the religious world from a secular point of view is like, what a boring life that would be. But it's so far from the truth, because when you're involved in ministry with God, you are literally working with the one who created the universe, and the universe is pretty big, and that means God is pretty big, and He's the biggest there is. There's nothing bigger. And for you to be able to engage with God and to be working hand in hand with Him and to pray and to see those prayers answered and to see before you God at work transforming the life of somebody else, it's the most exciting work there is. There's nothing better. There isn't. And so, it's a fantastic... I can't believe how blessed I am. I heard somebody the other day said, I think somebody was saying, talking about the lottery, you feel like you've won the lottery, and the person said, I've already won the lottery. I live in a free country and I know the Lord. That's already winning. There's nothing bigger you can get than knowing the King of the universe and knowing that you're going to live forever. That there is a purpose and a power to living now, but there's a plan for the future and a paradise to win, and we get to spend eternity there, not just in the glories of heaven, but rather being able to engage face to face with the one who made it all.
And as long as you stay on God's side, you can't lose.
Exactly right. Well, this is it.
The uncertainty of life without God is, you can try different things, you can open a business. Well, a business can succeed or fail.
Yeah, sure.
A marriage can succeed or fail. Anything in life can succeed or fail. But when you choose to align yourself with God, you can't fail.
That's right.
You cannot fail. It's impossible to fail.
The Bible talks about 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. It says, rejoice always. And of course, most people, I think, listening to this would know that there's some good times in life and there's some bad times, and sometimes the bad times overweigh the good times in life, and they can go through some really difficult periods. And how can somebody take that advice from Paul, who's writing to the church at Thessalonica there, saying rejoice always? What is that all about? And for me, there's a very deep-seated joy that exists from the knowledge that there is a God in the universe, that He wants to be my friend, that He has a personal interest in me, and not only me, but He wants to engage that way with everybody. And He wants to use me as a bridge to that next person, whoever that may be. And so there's a great deep-seated joy in knowing that, but also in knowing that there is a future and a hope. However bad things get here, and they do get bad, there's some real struggles and there's some real suffering that takes place. However bad that gets, we know it's temporary. It will not last forever. And more than that, what will replace it is going to be so much more glorious and better. So, somebody said that you can live weeks without food, days without water, minutes without air, but no time at all without hope. And what God gives you is hope.
Yeah.
God gives you the fact, He said, hang in there. Yes, it's bad, but hang in there. It doesn't last forever, and I've got something much better in mind at the end of all this.
We've got about 1 minute left. Do you mind if I ask Peter a question?
Shoot.
You mentioned Steve,
Yeah.
the fellow who first witnessed to you, and I've always wondered this. It seems that a lot of people who are raised in the church, raised in the Adventist church, and then they move away,
Yeah.
they still want to witness. I don't quite get it. Can you explain that? I mean, what was his interest? What was his interest in witnessing to you when he himself was not even walking in faith?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think when you know some things are true, there's no denying them. I mean, I've known people who no longer attend church, aren't engaged with the church, but they're still vegetarians.
That's right.
You know, because they, I'm not going to touch that stuff because I know better, sort of thing. You know, and I suppose that, having been on both sides of the creation evolution arguments, I know when you're on that other side that you think, I can't believe these guys who, grow up.
Yeah.
It's like I used to have a mate. I used to play soccer with a guy. When I was 14, he was 12, and he was the son. His parents used to go to the Anglican church, and he would go to the Anglican church every week. And I used to think, that's so stupid. Why you go to church? Why do you believe in the Bible? Haven't you been to school? And so that was sort of my attitude back then. And I think, likewise, when you have on the other side of the coin, when you do know that there is a creator, when you can understand the fact that creation actually does make sense. We are creators, human beings. We make things every day, whether it's a sandwich or a roller coaster or whatever. We build things all the time. Why? Because we're made in the image of the one who was the great creator. So I just think that some things stick, and when you know they're right, it doesn't matter how, whatever else you're confronted, that's still right, and you're still going to tell people about it. So
yeah. All right. So, do you have any recommended readings for the listeners at home?
Obviously the Bible, but I think that there's a great resource that I found, which is a Bible study guide, a series of Bible studies really, and you can download it as an app on your phone. It's called Studying Together by Mark Finley. I actually have a copy of the book in my bag, but I also have the app on my phone, and it means that at any given moment I can just pull out any different Bible topic and we can run through a series of Bible verses. It's very helpful, and so that's something I'd recommend.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good resource. All right, well, thank you very much for joining us here on the podcast today. It was great to have you, and great to have you at church giving the sermon today as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that concludes our podcast for today, and with that said, have a good one, and
Good night.
Good night.